Legacy in comics is a funny thing. It's often treated like a checklist, a way to remind readers where a character's been, what they've done, and how long they've lasted. But real legacy is quieter. It's in the emotional residue that lingers between panels, in the stories that still echo decades later, in the silence between two characters who've been through too much to say everything out loud. In Fantastic Four: Full Circle, Alex Ross doesn't just revive a Marvel classic, he listens to it. He lets one of the most emotionally powerful stories in Silver Age comics, Fantastic Four issue 51, speak across time. And then he answers it. Not by remaking it or by modernizing it, but by stepping into its rhythm, its energy, and its soul. This isn't just a return to the negative zone. It's a return to something deeper. A belief that stories still have weight, that emotion can outlast style, and that sometimes the best way to honor the past is to carry it forward. But to understand Full Circle, we have to go back. In 1966, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created Fantastic Four issue 51, a one-issue story titled This Man, This Monster. Unlike the cosmic battles and mad science that defined much of their run, this was something else. A meditation on identity, regret, and sacrifice. A tale where the monster wasn't the thing, but a desperate, jealous scientist who stole Ben Grimm's appearance and ended up dying to save Reed Richards. It was a quiet, tragic, and deeply human story, one that stood out in a book filled with spectacle, and over time it became one of the most beloved single issues of the era, a reminder that behind the cosmic rays and superpowers, the Fantastic Four were always about something more personal, the cost of being extraordinary. Decades later, Alex Ross, celebrated for his painted realism in books like Marvel's and Kingdom Come, decided to return to that very issue. But he didn't just bring his art. For Full Circle, he wrote, penciled, inked, and colored the book himself. And he did it as a love letter to Jack Kirby, to his energy, his design language, and the legacy he left imprinted on every cosmic panel. Ross didn't ditch his signature realism, but he did shift the frame around it. The figures still feel solid and grounded, but now they're surrounded by bold outlines, neon color palettes, and layouts that feel ripped from a Kirby fever dream. It's Ross in conversation with the past, not copying it, but paying tribute to Kirby by speaking in his visual language. The story of Full Circle doesn't follow the arc of a traditional adventure, it spirals. What begins as a seemingly random attack on the Baxter Building becomes a descent through memory, identity, and inherited consequence. This isn't just a story about the Fantastic Four confronting an external threat, it's about how their own emotional residue, guilt, loss, detachment, has seeped into the very fabric of the negative zone, and now it's seeping back out. Ross tells the story like an echo, looping back through old memories and unfinished moments. It starts with a literal breach, an intruder breaking into their home, but what's really being breached is their sense of security. The Baxter Building, long a symbol of stability and intellect, is violated by something that shouldn't be possible, a figure made of negative zone energy that resembles the man who impersonated Ben Grimm in This Man, This Monster. This is the first of many reverberations from that classic tale. That issue ended in tragic redemption, and Full Circle begins with its return as contamination. The decision to enter the negative zone isn't framed as a heroic mission, it's a response. Their home was breached, something impossible happened, and the only way to make sense of it is to trace it back to its source. There's no grand decision, just the quiet understanding that they have to follow the threat. Once inside, the story unravels, not through traditional plot mechanics, but through symbolic confrontation. The team isn't fighting villains in the usual sense. They're being drawn deeper into a place where memory and matter collapse into each other. At the center of it is Richard Janus, the unstable figure once known as the Nega Man. Years ago, he vanished into the zone, and now he's something else entirely. It was Janus who sent the empty shell crashing into the Baxter Building, setting everything in motion, not as an act of war, but as a lure, a mission, a summons. What he's become isn't entirely human anymore. Janus is a flickering consciousness embedded in antimatter, sustained by psychic energy and legacy rot. He tries to absorb the team, literally, to fold them into his collective, to make them part of the noise that sustains him. But Sue saves them, holding the corruption back with a force field just long enough to escape. But Janus isn't done, he follows them, And when he catches up, the confrontation isn't physical, it's philosophical. Reed stops him not with tech or power, but with words. He tells the creature the one thing it can't bear to hear, that it's not a man, it's a copy, just a trace, a leftover idea that thinks it's real. That quiet moment of clarity breaks the loop, and the echo collapses. Janus isn't defeated, but he is dismissed. Unmade by the truth that he's no longer real. Not a monster, not a man, but just an echo of a forgotten mistake, fading back into the silence he came from. What Ross captures here is that legacy isn't fixed. It doesn't sit quietly in the background. It mutates, it echoes, it finds new forms. Janus may be gone, but what he represents lingers. The danger of forgetting, of letting the past fester instead of facing it. The negative zone has always mirrored inner turmoil, but here it goes further. It's absorbed the team's history, their regrets, their silences, and resurrected them into something they can no longer ignore. Reed's past choices don't stay in the past. They resurface, reshaped and unspoken until they demand attention. What the team finds in the zone isn't a villain to fight, but it's what they left behind. Not a monster, but a psychic echo of everything unsolved. And then, just as it all seems to collapse under the weight of memory and distortion, the story shifts. The team is pulled from the storm to a familiar place. A world hidden within the negative zone. The anti-Earth. Untouched by chaos, shielded by converted matter that repels the zone's decay. It feels impossible and unmapped, yet alive. And waiting there is someone they thought long gone. Ricardo Jones. The man who stole Ben Grimm's identity, who lived as the Thing for a day, who gave his life in Fantastic Four issue 51, in a strange redemptive act of sacrifice. Somehow he survived, and not just survived, but he built something. A home, a life, a peaceful world inside a dimension defined by destruction. It reframes everything, because it wasn't Janus the story has been echoing, it was Jones. And unlike Janus, Jones didn't rot in silence. He remembered, he grew, and he changed. Because he's not just surviving, he's thriving. Reborn by the science of this strange, stable world, he's found purpose, a meaning, and redemption. He's no longer the bitter, jealous man he once was. He's someone who's been the Thing, who understood him, who carried his strength, his pain, and his loneliness, and who came out the other side better for it. Ben, who is so often ready with a joke or a grumble, is left speechless. Because what Jones offers isn't just closure, it's gratitude. And that quiet reversal, the imposter thanking the original, is where Ross does something remarkable. He doesn't just revisit this man, this monster, he resolves it with empathy and grace. And Reed, in one of his most emotionally generous gestures in years, offers Jones something even more powerful: freedom. A piece of his own suit designed to adapt to antimatter, allowing Jones to finally shed the armor that's bound his energy form for so long. It's a moment that says, we haven't forgotten you, you mattered, and you still do. Because this isn't a story about punishment, or even penance. It's about reconciliation, a fractured past, sewn back together not with speeches, but with quiet actions. With the shared understanding that no one is ever just one thing, and that even those lost in the negative zone, literally or emotionally, can still find peace, if not a way back, then a way forward. And Jones repays Reed's kindness with his own, by getting them home using a split cosmic control rod, charged with nega energy. If each member focuses their will through it, he believes it can send them back across dimensions. Reed trusts the science, he's seen something like it before, and so the four of them, grounded, quiet, and changed, link the pieces and think of home, and in a burst of light, they're gone. And yet, Final Circle doesn't let us escape without a final layer of reflection. Back at the Baxter building, Reed can't sleep. He speaks about psychoreactivity, the idea that the negative zone responds not to physics but to the subconscious, that perhaps the monstrous Janus they encountered was never fully real, but a projection of doubt, guilt, and suppressed memory, that the true enemy of the negative zone isn't Janus or Annihilus, but the unspoken parts of themselves. But Ben doesn't want to hear it. He's had his closure, he's at peace. But Reed, ever the thinker, needs to believe there's a pattern, that the universe is speaking, that maybe legacy isn't fixed. Maybe it's psychoreactive too, a living thing that reflects what we carry into it. That's the final layer of Full Circle, legacy as mirror. The story begins with the echo of a man crashing through their home, and ends with that same man fully alive, at peace, with purpose, and offering them a path back. Not through battle, but through memory. The kind that lingers, reshapes, and quietly reaches out a hand. Full Circle isn't just a trip through the negative zone, it's a reflection of who the Fantastic Four are now after all these years. They're not on a quest to grow stronger or discover themselves, they're seasoned, confident, and grounded. But this story doesn't test their powers, it tests what's settled in the spaces between them, what's gone unsaid, what they've quietly carried. Reed Richards isn't unraveling here, but he's not unaffected either. The mystery draws him in, not because he's chasing glory or solutions, but because he senses something unfinished. And when he meets Ricardo Jones and offers him a piece of his own suit so he can survive, it's not a grand gesture. It's thoughtful, it's kind. It's Reed showing compassion, not with words, but through design. Ben Grimm doesn't need the journey to sort through his own history. He's made peace with who he is. But when Jones tells him that being Ben Grimm, even for a day, made him better, it hits. Not because it reopens a wound, but because it quietly affirms something Ben has always struggled to believe. That he's more than what happened to him. That who he is, rocky skin and all, has real worth. Sue and Johnny aren't spotlighted, but they're never sidelined. Sue stays steady and sharp, anchoring the team as always. She shields them, physically and emotionally, when the danger spikes. Johnny might still lead with bravado, but underneath the fire is something steadier, a deep instinctive loyalty. When the world turns surreal and the rules stop making sense, he doesn't flinch. He follows the team into the unknown, not because he understands it, but because they're his family, and that's enough. In the end, Full Circle isn't about change, it's about recognition. It's about looking into the murk of memory and saying, we've survived it. We're still us, and that's not nothing. That's everything. Not transformation, but confirmation. Not reinvention, but return. And that philosophy echoes in the art. Alex Ross is famous for his lifelike, painted superheroes. They're majestic, iconic, and almost larger than life. But Full Circle feels different. It's not about realism, it's about energy, about honoring the wild, imaginative spirit of Jack Kirby. From that very first page you can feel it. This is Ross stepping into Kirby's world and embracing its chaos, its weirdness, and its power. The Fantastic Four themselves look like they've stepped out of the 1960s. Sue Storm especially is modelled closely on how Kirby used to draw her. Sharp features, classic hairstyle, expressive eyes. It's not nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's a visual choice that roots the story in a certain lineage, a clear line back to where it all began. The artwork doesn't just reference Kirby, it builds on his foundation. The bold outlines, the dense layouts, the explosive colours. The negative zone looks like it's tearing itself apart and putting itself back together in every panel. The pages feel alive, like they're reacting to the story instead of just containing it. Anti-Earth glows with impossible light, and Ricardo Jones is framed in calm, cool blues, as if peace has finally found him. This isn't Ross showing off. It's Ross paying respect to Kirby's vision, to the Silver Age energy that made this story possible in the first place. Full Circle doesn't just look good, it feels right, like the past remembered, reinterpreted, and brought soaring back to life. And Fantastic Four Full Circle is more than a sequel, it's a reckoning. A story that understands legacy isn't a weight to bear, it's a conversation to keep having. It doesn't rewrite the past, it engages with it, gently, honestly, and sometimes painfully. In an era where comics often chase reinvention for their own sake, Ross chooses reflection. He asks, what happens to the stories we leave behind? What happens to the characters who only appeared once, made a sacrifice, and were never mentioned again? In Full Circle, they're remembered, resurrected, and some are given dignity. And that's what makes it powerful. Full Circle isn't just about the Fantastic Four, it's about why they still matter. Not because they fight cosmic threats or save the universe, but because they endure. They stay together, they choose each other again and again. Through loss, through silence, through the weight of legacy. They remember who they are and they don't let go. In the end, Full Circle doesn't try to rewrite the past, it engages with it. It looks directly into the echo of one of the most human, haunting issues in Fantastic Four history, and dares to ask what still lingers there. Not out of nostalgia, but out of responsibility. Because legacy isn't just what survives, it's what we return to, what we carry forward, what we answer. And in Ross's hands, that answer doesn't come through spectacle or finality, but through memory. The kind that lingers, reshapes, and finally reaches out a hand. Not to pull us backward, but to remind us that the past still speaks. And sometimes it simply says, remember me. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like, and if you want to see more content like this, then hit the subscribe button as well. And let me know your thoughts on Full Circle. Personally, I think it's such a beautiful tribute to the legacy of one of Marvel's greatest teams and to Jack Kirby. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And remember, whether it's a single issue or a trade, there's always another page to turn. Keep reading, and I'll see you next time.